1946. When most people think about post-war America, they imagine a country ready to move forward. New cars, new designs, new technology, a return to civilian life after years of military production. But Dodge did something completely different. Instead of creating a soft, comfortable pickup designed for the average driver, they took a machine built for war and simply changed its mission. The result was one of the toughest and strangest civilian trucks ever created, the 1946 Dodge Power Wagon civilian pickup. And the reason it looked so different from every other truck on American roads was simple. It was never truly born as a civilian vehicle. Its roots came from the battlefield. During World War II, Dodge built rugged military trucks for the United States Armed Forces. These vehicles were designed for extreme conditions: mud, sand, snow, broken roads, places where ordinary vehicles had no chance. They were not designed for comfort. They were designed to survive. After the war ended, Dodge saw an opportunity. Thousands of soldiers had experienced these trucks. They knew how capable they were. Farmers, workers, and rural customers also needed something stronger than the typical pickup. So Chrysler adapted the military design for civilian use. The Power Wagon was created. But instead of making it feel like a normal pickup, Dodge kept the military personality. And that is exactly why it looked so unusual. The first thing you noticed was the size. Not necessarily because it was extremely large, but because it looked extremely serious. Tall ride height, flat, upright body, heavy-duty frame, large tires, a front end that looked more like industrial equipment than a family truck. Compared with smoother post-war pickups from Ford Motor Company and General Motors, the Power Wagon looked almost primitive. But that was intentional. It was not trying to be beautiful. It was trying to be unstoppable. The design philosophy was completely different. A normal pickup asked, "How comfortable can this be?" The Power Wagon asked, "How much punishment can this survive?" And the answer was, a lot. Underneath the body was engineering based on military experience. The truck used four-wheel drive as standard, something that was still rare among civilian pickups in the 1940s. At a time when most trucks were simple rear-wheel drive work machines, the Power Wagon offered genuine off-road capability. Not marketing, not a temporary feature, real mechanical ability. It could send power to all four wheels and keep moving when roads disappeared. Mud? Not a major problem. Snow? Manageable. Rocky trails? Possible. Deep farm roads? Exactly where it belonged. This made it incredibly useful for rural America. Farmers used it, utility companies used it, forest workers used it. Anyone who needed a vehicle that could reach difficult places found a reason to appreciate it. But there was a price for that toughness. The Power Wagon was not a comfortable truck. Driving one was an experience. The steering was heavy. The suspension was stiff. The ride quality was rough compared with normal pickups. Inside the cabin, there was little attempt to create a luxury environment. The driver did not feel like they were sitting in a modern vehicle. They felt like they were operating machinery, and that was because they were. The Power Wagon had the personality of equipment. It felt closer to a tractor, construction machine, or military vehicle than a family pickup. But for many owners, that was exactly the appeal. It did not pretend to be something it wasn't. It was honest. It was built for a purpose, and it did that purpose extremely well. However, that same extreme personality limited its popularity. The average buyer did not need a military-style truck. Most people wanted something easier to drive, something smoother, something more practical for everyday life. A normal pickup was enough. The Power Wagon was almost too specialized. It was overbuilt for ordinary tasks, like using a tank to pick up groceries. It would work, but maybe it was more than necessary. Another reason these trucks became rare is because owners used them hard. They were not treated like collectible vehicles. They worked, they hauled, they pulled, they went places where other trucks could not. Many were modified over the years. Some were converted for industrial use. Others simply rusted away after decades of exposure. A truck designed to survive almost anything could still lose the battle against time, which makes original examples today much harder to find. A preserved 1946 Power Wagon is not just an old pickup, it's a surviving piece of post-war engineering, a direct connection between military technology and civilian transportation. Because the Power Wagon helped introduce a concept that would become extremely important later. The idea that a truck could be more than a road vehicle. It could be an adventure machine, an exploration tool, a vehicle built for places where roads were optional. Modern off-road trucks and SUVs owe something to this philosophy. High-clearance designs, four-wheel drive, heavy-duty construction, adventure-focused engineering. All of these ideas existed in the Power Wagon long before they became popular. It was not a stylish lifestyle vehicle. It was not trying to impress anyone. It was simply a machine built to do impossible jobs. The 1946 Dodge Power Wagon civilian pickup was strange because it was almost too capable. A military truck wearing civilian clothes, a battlefield survivor trying to live a normal life. And one of the clearest examples of what happens when a manufacturer decides, why build a new truck when the one from the war already works? 1969. By the end of the 1960s, something interesting is happening in the American automotive world. The traditional pickup truck is no longer the only answer for people who need utility. A new type of vehicle is becoming popular, something tougher than a station wagon, more adventurous than a sedan, but smaller and more recreational than a full-size work truck. The early SUV idea is beginning to take shape, and one of the most famous examples is the Chevrolet K5 Blazer. Built by General Motors, the Blazer was designed to compete in this new market. It was not exactly a pickup, it was not exactly a family vehicle. It was an off-road machine with passenger car comfort, a vehicle for people who wanted to escape the pavement. But some owners looked at the Blazer and thought, this is close, but it could be something else. And that led to one of the strangest transformations in truck history. The 1969 Chevrolet K5 Blazer half-cab pickup conversion. Now, to understand why these conversions existed, you have to understand the original Blazer. The K5 Blazer was based on Chevrolet's full-size truck platform. It had serious off-road hardware, a strong frame, available four-wheel drive, powerful engines, and a removable roof design that made it feel completely different from normal vehicles. It was built for adventure, camping, hunting, exploring, driving where normal cars could not. But despite its capability, it had one limitation: cargo space. A traditional pickup truck had an obvious advantage: a large open bed. You could throw tools in it, load equipment, carry materials, use it like a work vehicle. The Blazer, with its enclosed rear body, was more flexible for passengers, but less convenient for large cargo. And that is where owners started experimenting. Because if Chevrolet would not build exactly the vehicle they wanted, they would build it themselves. The idea was simple: take a Blazer, remove part of the rear body, create a pickup-style cargo area, transform the SUV into a half-cab truck. On paper, it makes sense. You get the off-road ability of a Blazer, combined with the practicality of a pickup. But the result, visually, was often very strange, because the Blazer was never originally designed as a pickup. The proportions were not naturally balanced for that role. A factory pickup is engineered from the beginning around the relationship between the cab and the bed, the roofline, the wheelbase, the weight distribution. Everything is planned together. But these conversions started with a finished SUV and changed its identity afterward. And that created some unusual shapes. The front looked like a normal K5 Blazer. The cab still had the familiar SUV character. But behind it, the vehicle suddenly changed. A short cargo bed appeared. The roof ended earlier. The rear looked almost like it belonged to a different vehicle. Some examples looked surprisingly clean, almost like a factory experiment. Others looked like someone built a truck after the designers had already left the building. And that's part of the charm. These conversions were not always perfect. They were creative. They were personal. They represented a time when owners were not afraid to modify vehicles to fit their own needs. Today, manufacturers offer almost every possible combination: pickup SUVs, adventure trucks, lifestyle vehicles. But in 1969, customers often had to create those combinations themselves. The half-cab Blazer conversion was a response to that gap. A truck for someone who wanted everything: off-road capability, cargo space, a shorter, more manageable body, and the personality of a custom machine. However, the modifications came with challenges. Cutting and rebuilding a vehicle can affect structural strength. The original Blazer body was designed as a complete SUV structure. Once modified, everything depended on the quality of the conversion. Some builders did excellent work. Others created vehicles that were less refined. The weight balance could change. The body lines could become awkward. Weather protection could become worse. And compared with a factory-built pickup, a converted Blazer was always something unusual. But unusual does not mean unsuccessful. Many owners loved them precisely because they were different. They were not just transportation, they were a statement. A way to say, I don't want the truck everyone else has, I want something nobody else has. And that attitude helped create the custom truck culture that became huge in later decades. The reason these vehicles are interesting today is not because they were common. They weren't. Many were one-off builds. Many disappeared. Some were destroyed. Others were returned to stock. And because they were often created from vehicles that were heavily used, surviving examples are relatively uncommon. A well-preserved half-cab Blazer conversion today is a piece of automotive creativity. It represents a moment when the factory didn't offer exactly what customers wanted, so customers became the engineers. The 1969 Chevrolet K5 Blazer half-cab pickup conversion was not a perfect vehicle. It was not a mainstream model. It was not something General Motors officially built in large numbers. But that's exactly why it's fascinating. It shows how flexible the idea of a truck could become. An SUV, a pickup, an off-road machine, all combined into one unusual creation. A vehicle that looked like two different worlds collided and somehow made it work. 1971. By the early 1970s, the American automotive world is deep inside the muscle car era, but it is also starting to feel the pressure of change. Engines are still huge, styling is still aggressive, performance is still a major selling point. But underneath that surface, manufacturers are beginning to experiment with combinations that do not fit traditional categories anymore. And one of the most extreme examples of that experimentation comes from General Motors, the Chevrolet El Camino SS 454, a vehicle that never fully committed to being one thing, because from the moment you see it, it creates confusion. It looks like a coupe at first glance. Long hood, low roofline, smooth body lines that clearly come from Chevrolet's passenger car design language. But then you notice the rear, and everything changes. Because instead of a trunk, there is a pickup bed. Open, functional, unexpected. And that combination immediately challenges the viewer's understanding of what this vehicle is supposed to be. It is not a traditional truck, and it is not a pure muscle car. It exists in the space between them, and that is exactly where its identity becomes interesting. But the 1971 SS454 version pushes this concept even further, because this is not just a styling experiment, it is a performance machine. Under the hood sits Chevrolet's legendary big block 454 cubic inch V8, an engine that represents the peak of early 1970s American displacement culture. Massive torque, instant throttle response, and enough power to turn what looks like a utility vehicle into something far more aggressive. This is where the El Camino SS454 becomes truly unusual. Because when you combine a high-performance muscle car engine with a pickup-style rear bed, you create a contradiction. A vehicle designed for speed that can also carry cargo. And that dual identity is what confuses many people at the time. Truck buyers expect durability, simplicity, and work-focused behavior. Muscle car buyers expect speed, image, and performance-focused driving. The El Camino SS454 sits directly between those expectations. Too refined to be a traditional work truck, too practical to be a pure performance coupe. And yet, that contradiction is exactly what makes it memorable. On the road, it behaves much closer to a muscle car than a pickup. The chassis, suspension tuning, and power delivery are all designed for acceleration and straight-line performance. When the big block wakes up, the vehicle does not feel like a utility platform pretending to be fast. It feels like a muscle car that simply happens to have extra utility space attached. And that distinction matters, because Chevrolet was not trying to build a conventional pickup with performance upgrades. They were taking the muscle car formula and adding functionality on top of it. The result is something that does not fit cleanly into marketing categories of the time, and that creates both appeal and confusion. Some buyers immediately understood it. They saw it as the perfect combination of practicality and performance. A car that could go fast, sound aggressive, and still carry tools, luggage, or equipment when needed. It offered freedom in a way that pure muscle cars could not. Because those cars had trunks, limited space, no flexibility. The El Camino SS454 gave drivers something different, a performance vehicle that could actually do useful work. But other buyers were less convinced, because from a traditional standpoint, combining these two roles felt unnecessary. Why build a high-performance pickup-style vehicle when dedicated trucks already existed? And why add a bed to a muscle car when it could compromise image or identity? That tension limited its mainstream acceptance, but it also ensured its legacy. Because over time, the El Camino SS454 became something more than just a niche product. It became a symbol of a very specific American idea, that performance and utility do not have to be separate, that a vehicle can be emotional and practical at the same time, and that identity in the automotive world does not have to be fixed. It can be blended, it can be stretched, it can be redefined. Today, the El Camino SS454 is remembered as one of the most iconic examples of that philosophy. Not because it was the best-selling truck, not because it was the fastest muscle car, but because it refused to choose a category. It was a muscle car with a bed, a pickup with attitude, and a machine that quietly challenged what Americans expected from both worlds. The 1971 Chevrolet El Camino SS 454 remains one of the clearest examples of early performance utility fusion. A vehicle that proved long before modern lifestyle trucks existed that driving pleasure and everyday practicality could share the same platform, even if it made perfect sense to no one at the time. 1977. By the mid to late 1970s, the American pickup truck is no longer living in the same world it came from just 20 years earlier. The post-war era trucks were simple machines, built for farms, work sites, basic transportation in rural America. Function came first, always. But by 1977, that clear identity is beginning to soften in ways that are not always immediately obvious on the surface. The truck is still a tool, yes, but it is also starting to become something else: a daily driver, a personal vehicle, a reflection of taste, not just necessity. And Ford Motor Company begins to experiment with how far that idea can go without breaking the traditional pickup identity completely. The Ford F-150 Explorer Special exists right in the middle of that transition. At its core, it is still a traditional member of the F-Series family. Body-on-frame construction, rear-wheel drive, or optional four-wheel drive depending on configuration. Straightforward engineering designed for durability and long-term use. There is nothing fragile or experimental about its foundation. It is still a truck in the most honest sense. But what changes everything is how Ford chooses to present it. Because instead of treating the truck as a purely utilitarian object, Ford starts to understand that buyers are beginning to care about more than just capability. They care about how the vehicle looks in their driveway, how it feels to own, how it expresses personality on the road. And that shift in thinking leads to appearance-focused packages like the Explorer Special. This is not a mechanical revolution. There is no radical new engine architecture or experimental drivetrain. Instead, the changes are visual and emotional, and that is what makes it so important in hindsight. The Explorer Special introduces design elements that immediately separate it from a standard work truck. Unique paint combinations, factory-applied graphics that run along the body sides, trim details that add contrast and visual presence, sometimes brighter or more expressive color choices than traditional fleet or work configurations. These are not performance upgrades. They do not increase towing capacity or payload. They do not fundamentally change how the truck behaves under load, but they change how the truck is perceived. And perception, especially in automotive culture, is powerful. Because in 1977, most pickup trucks still communicate one idea very clearly: serious work. They are meant to look strong, simple, and functional. Anything that feels too decorative can be seen as unnecessary or even slightly out of place. So when the Explorer Special appears with bold styling cues, it immediately creates a reaction. Not just admiration or criticism, but conversation. Some buyers see it and immediately understand the direction Ford is exploring. They see a truck that is no longer just an industrial tool. They see something more personal, more expressive, a vehicle that can match lifestyle as well as labor. For these buyers, the Explorer Special feels like a preview of something larger that has not yet fully arrived. A truck that belongs in everyday life, not just on job sites. But other buyers are more cautious. To them, the pickup truck is still sacred in its purpose. It should not be dressed up unnecessarily. It should not rely on styling packages to create identity. It should earn respect through capability alone. From that perspective, the Explorer Special can feel like style being placed above substance, even if the underlying truck remains unchanged. This tension is important because it reflects a deeper cultural shift happening across the United States during this period. Suburban expansion is increasing, commuting distances are growing, Trucks are no longer limited to rural or industrial environments. They are appearing in cities, neighborhoods, and parking lots that were once dominated by passenger cars. And once that happens, appearance starts to matter more, because a vehicle that is seen every day in public spaces becomes part of personal identity, not just a tool kept at a job site. And Ford is paying attention to that shift earlier than many competitors in this specific way. The Explorer Special is not a luxury truck. It does not offer plush interiors or advanced comfort systems. It is still very much a 1970s pickup inside. Simple materials, functional layout, durability over refinement. But its exterior signals something new. It suggests that a truck does not have to be visually anonymous. It can stand out. It can be recognizable. It can carry a sense of personality without changing its core mechanical identity. That is the subtle but important innovation here. Not power, not engineering breakthroughs, but the introduction of visual identity as a factory-supported concept in pickup culture. Over time, this idea will grow far beyond what the Explorer Special represents. It will evolve into sport packages, luxury trims, off-road editions, and eventually fully differentiated lifestyle trucks that are marketed as much for image as for function. But in 1977, it is still in its early form, still experimental, still slightly controversial in some circles. Another reason the Explorer Special stands out today is because of how it was used in real life. These trucks were not built to sit in collections. They were not limited production halo vehicles. They were regular F-Series pickups with added styling packages. That means many were used like any other truck: work duty, daily driving, exposure to weather, load, and time. As a result, very few have survived in clean, original condition, not because they were rare in production, but because they were not preserved as special artifacts. They were just part of everyday life. And that makes surviving examples more valuable today in a historical sense, because they capture a moment when pickup trucks were standing between two identities, one foot still firmly in the world of work, the other slowly stepping into the world of personal expression. The 1977 Ford F-150 Explorer Special is not a radical experiment. It is not a performance monster. It is not a luxury flagship. It is something more subtle, a transition vehicle, a quiet signal that the pickup truck is no longer defined only by utility. It is beginning to be shaped by emotion, image, and individuality. And that change, small as it looked at the time, would eventually redefine the entire segment in the decades that followed. 1981. By the early 1980s, the American automotive landscape is going through a serious identity shift. The muscle car era has already collapsed under emissions rules, insurance pressure, and rising fuel costs. Full-size trucks are still dominant, but even they are starting to feel the pressure of efficiency and practicality. And into this changing environment comes a vehicle that does not look like it belongs in any traditional American category at all: the Subaru BRAT. Built by Subaru, a company still relatively small in the United States market at the time, the BRAT arrives with a completely different philosophy compared to domestic pickups from Ford Motor Company or General Motors. Where American trucks emphasize size, torque, and traditional utility, the BRAT emphasizes simplicity, lightness, and efficiency. And that alone makes it stand out immediately, because the first impression is not power, it is scale. It is small, low, compact, almost toy-like compared to the full-size pickups dominating American roads in the early 1980s. But that small size is not a flaw in Subaru's eyes, it is the entire strategy. Because the BRAT is designed for a world where fuel economy matters more than raw horsepower, where buyers are more concerned with efficiency than towing maximum loads, and where a truck is no longer just a work tool, but a multi-purpose lifestyle vehicle. At its core, the BRAT is built on a passenger car platform philosophy, which gives it car-like handling characteristics compared to traditional body-on-frame pickups. It is lighter, more economical, easier to drive in urban environments, and more approachable for buyers who might never consider a full-size truck in the first place. But what truly makes the BRAT unforgettable is not just its size or efficiency. It is one design decision that turned it into one of the most unusual production vehicles ever sold in the United States: the rear-facing cargo bed seats. These were not a styling gimmick in the traditional sense. They were actual functional seats mounted in the rear cargo area facing outward. In practice, this meant passengers could ride in the back of the vehicle open to the outside environment. It created an experience that was part pickup truck, part recreational vehicle, and part something that defied normal automotive expectations entirely. From a regulatory standpoint, these seats were also a clever workaround, designed to classify the vehicle in a way that avoided certain import tariffs that applied to light trucks at the time. So the BRAT is not just strange by accident, it's strange by design, engineering, and legal necessity all at once. And that combination is what makes it historically interesting. Because while American trucks of the same era are still focused on traditional utility, Subaru is approaching the concept from a completely different direction. Instead of asking, how much can a truck carry? They're asking how small, efficient, and flexible a truck can be while still remaining practical. That question leads to a vehicle that behaves very differently from its competitors. It is not built for heavy hauling. It is not designed for industrial work. It's meant for light utility, recreation, and everyday use. Camping gear, small cargo loads, weekend travel, rural driving where full-size trucks might be unnecessary or inefficient. And in that role, it actually performs surprisingly well, because its lightweight and compact size give it advantages in maneuverability and fuel economy that larger trucks cannot match. But in early 1980s America, perception is just as important as capability, and many traditional truck buyers simply did not understand what the BRAT was trying to be. To them, a pickup should look strong, heavy, capable of serious work. The BRAT, by comparison, looked almost playful, too small to be taken seriously, too unusual to fit established expectations. And that perception limited its mainstream acceptance in the truck market at the time. However, something interesting happens over time. As decades pass, the automotive world begins to shift toward compact utility vehicles, crossovers, and lifestyle-oriented designs. Suddenly, the BRAT's original concept starts to make more sense in hindsight. A small pickup with unusual seating, designed for efficiency, designed outside the expectations of American truck culture, and remembered not because it blended in, but because it was different enough that it could not be ignored. 1960. At the dawn of a new decade, American trucks are still very clearly defined by tradition. A pickup is supposed to be straightforward: front engine layout, rear-wheel drive, strong frame. A simple, honest machine built for hauling and work. That formula is so established that anything outside of it immediately feels unusual. And General Motors decides to challenge that expectation with one of its most unconventional ideas: the Chevrolet Corvair Loadside pickup. To understand why this truck feels so strange, you have to understand the philosophy behind the Corvair itself. Unlike traditional American cars of the time, the Corvair line was built around a rear-engine air-cooled layout, an approach more commonly associated with European designs than Detroit engineering. It was a bold departure from the norm, and when that same architecture is applied to a pickup truck, the result becomes even more unusual. Because now the engine is not in front of the driver, it is behind the cab. That single change alters everything about how the vehicle behaves, feels, and is perceived. The Loadside pickup is part of this experiment, and from the very beginning, it does not fit the mental image most buyers have of a truck. Visually, it still tries to maintain pickup proportions, a cab, a cargo bed, a functional, work-oriented silhouette. But underneath that familiar shape lies an entirely different mechanical philosophy. Instead of pulling the vehicle from the front, the engine pushes it from the rear, and that changes weight distribution in a way that directly affects handling, traction, and driving behavior. The result is a truck that feels lighter at the front than most traditional pickups, more car-like in some aspects, and less predictable for buyers who are used to conventional front-engine trucks. This is where the Corvair Loadside becomes fascinating from an engineering standpoint, because on paper, there are advantages to this layout. A lower floor height is possible without a large engine block in the front. That means easier loading in certain situations, a potentially cleaner cargo area design, and a more compact overall structure compared to some traditional pickups. From a design perspective, it also creates a unique packaging solution that separates it from competitors. But the problem is not just technical, it is psychological. Because pickup trucks in 1960 are not just tools, they are symbols of capability. And that symbol is deeply tied to familiarity. A front-engine truck communicates strength in a way buyers understand instinctively. It looks stable, predictable, familiar. The Corvair Loadside, by contrast, breaks that expectation. Even if it is functional in many ways, it does not immediately feel like a traditional truck. And in the automotive world, first impressions matter a great deal, especially in a segment as conservative as pickups were at the time. Many buyers simply did not connect with the idea. They wanted a truck that felt like a truck, not a reinterpretation of one. This leads to one of the key tensions surrounding the Loadside: innovation versus expectation. General Motors was clearly experimenting with new engineering ideas, trying to rethink how vehicles could be structured, but the market was still anchored in older definitions of what a truck should be. So even though the Corvair platform offered interesting possibilities, the pickup variant struggled to find its audience. There's also the broader context of the Corvair family itself. Over time, the Corvair line would become controversial in the American automotive conversation, which affected perception of all its variants, including utility-focused models. And that reputation made it even harder for unconventional versions like the Loadside to gain acceptance. Because when buyers are already uncertain, they tend to avoid additional risk, even if the engineering behind the vehicle is creative or forward-thinking. As a result, production remained limited, and the Loadside quickly faded from the mainstream market. But its importance is not measured in sales figures, it's measured in what it represents. Because the Corvair Loadside stands as one of the clearest examples of General Motors attempting to rethink the pickup formula entirely. Not just making a truck more powerful, not just making it more comfortable, but changing its mechanical foundation, moving away from the traditional front-engine blueprint that defined nearly every pickup of the era. And even though the market was not ready for it in 1960, the idea itself is significant because it shows that manufacturers were already questioning long-established norms, exploring alternative layouts, testing unconventional engineering paths, and trying to imagine what a pickup could be if it was not restricted by tradition. Today, the Corvair Loadside is remembered less as a commercial success and more as an early experiment in rethinking truck design. A vehicle that challenged expectations, confused buyers, and ultimately proved that innovation alone is not always enough when it arrives ahead of cultural readiness. A pickup that was mechanically different, visually familiar, and conceptually far ahead of what most people expected from a truck in 1960. 1991. At the start of the 1990s, the American performance landscape is no longer the wild, unrestricted playground it once was during the muscle car era. The big block monsters of the 1960s are gone. Emissions regulations are strict. Insurance companies have already reshaped what manufacturers are allowed to sell in the performance space, and most pickup trucks have settled into a very stable identity. They are built for work, for reliability, for durability, not for speed, not for acceleration, and certainly not for competing with sports cars. That is the established rule of the era. And then GMC breaks it in a way that feels almost surreal. The GMC Syclone. At first glance, nothing about it seems unusual enough to justify its later reputation. It is a compact pickup truck based on familiar GM design language of the time. Small proportions, a simple body shape, a fairly understated appearance compared to more aggressive performance cars. If you saw it parked in a lot in 1991, you would likely assume it was just another light-duty utility truck, something practical, something ordinary. But that assumption becomes completely wrong the moment the engine starts working under full load. Because the Syclone is not ordinary in any sense once it moves. Underneath its relatively normal exterior lies a powertrain configuration that fundamentally changes what a pickup truck is capable of. At the center of it is a turbocharged 4.3-liter V6. This is already a major departure from traditional pickup thinking. Most trucks of the time rely on naturally aspirated engines designed for predictable torque delivery and long-term durability under load. The Syclone instead uses forced induction, which means power delivery is not just strong, it is amplified under boost. And that changes everything about how the vehicle behaves when acceleration is demanded. But GMC does not stop at the engine, because power alone does not define performance. Traction does. And this is where the Syclone becomes even more unusual. Instead of a traditional rear-wheel drive layout, like almost every pickup of its era, GMC equips it with an advanced all-wheel drive system. At a time when AWD was still relatively uncommon in performance vehicles, especially trucks, this decision immediately sets the Syclone apart. Because it solves one of the biggest limitations of high-power rear-wheel drive vehicles, wheel spin. Instead of wasting power through tire slippage, the Syclone can distribute torque across all four wheels, which means the moment the driver accelerates aggressively, the truck does not struggle for grip, it launches hard. And that is where its reputation begins to form. Because the Syclone was not just fast for a truck, it was fast compared to almost everything on the road at the time. Sports cars, performance coupes, even vehicles that cost significantly more and were designed specifically for speed. In straight-line acceleration, the Syclone was capable of surprising almost anything that pulled up next to it. And that creates a contradiction that defined its identity. Because visually, it does not communicate that capability. There are no exaggerated aerodynamic additions, no racing-style body kits, no visual cues that suggest extreme performance engineering. It looks like a compact pickup. And that contrast between appearance and reality is a large part of why it became legendary. Owners and journalists who experienced it firsthand often described a similar reaction. Confusion first, then surprise, then disbelief once the acceleration was fully understood. Because the Syclone does not feel like a truck trying to be fast, it feels like a performance vehicle that happens to have a pickup body attached. And that distinction is extremely important. GMC did not simply modify an existing truck for mild performance improvement. They engineered a system where performance was the priority from the beginning. Every major decision in its design points toward one goal: maximum acceleration and traction in a compact platform. That includes suspension tuning as well. The chassis is lowered and stiffened compared to standard trucks. Body roll is reduced. Weight transfer under acceleration is controlled more aggressively. The entire vehicle feels like a performance coupe in behavior than a utility machine. But despite all of this, it is still technically a pickup. It still has a bed, it still has utility capability, which makes its identity even more complicated. Because most buyers in 1991 did not know how to categorize it. Truck buyers expected practicality and towing capability. Performance buyers expected sports car styling and identity. The Syclone did not fully satisfy either traditional expectations. Instead, it created a new category that most people were not yet ready to fully understand. A performance pickup, not a modified truck, not a novelty concept, but a factory-built machine designed to challenge sports cars in specific conditions. And that is what makes it so significant historically. Because it was not just a fast truck, it was a statement about what a truck could be if engineering priorities changed. It suggested that utility and performance were not mutually exclusive ideas, that a vehicle designed for work could also be engineered for speed. And while the market response at the time was limited due to its niche nature and production numbers, the idea itself had long-term influence. Modern performance trucks, sport-oriented pickups, and high-performance utility vehicles all trace part of their conceptual DNA back to experiments like this. The Syclone also gained its reputation because of timing. It arrived before the performance pickup category truly existed, before manufacturers fully embraced the idea of blending utility with sports car-level acceleration. So, at the time, it felt almost out of place, too advanced for its category, too unconventional for mainstream acceptance. And that is why it became a legend rather than a mass-market success. Today, when people look back at it, they don't just see a fast pickup, they see an early experiment in redefining vehicle categories. A machine that quietly challenged assumptions without changing its outward appearance dramatically. A compact truck that could embarrass much more expensive performance cars under the right conditions. And a reminder that sometimes innovation doesn't arrive with radical styling or obvious visual cues. Sometimes it arrives in a form so familiar that people don't realize how different it is until it accelerates away and leaves expectations behind entirely. 1957. At this point in American automotive history, the pickup truck segment is no longer an experiment. It is an established, deeply embedded part of national life. Farmers rely on them, small businesses depend on them, construction crews and rural communities treat them as essential tools, not optional vehicles. And because of that, pickup design in the 1950s is becoming increasingly standardized across the industry. Ford Motor Company and General Motors are effectively setting the visual and mechanical tone for what a normal pickup should look like. Strong, upright front ends, heavy chrome usage that communicates durability and presence, simple, functional interiors, body-on-frame construction designed to survive years of abuse. This is the dominant formula. And within that environment, any manufacturer that deviates from it immediately stands out. Studebaker is one of those manufacturers, a company that is smaller, more financially constrained, but still determined to maintain a unique identity in a market controlled by giants. The 1957 Transtar pickup is one of its clearest expressions of that philosophy. And what makes it interesting is that it does not try to compete with Ford and Chevrolet by copying them. Instead, it tries to reinterpret the pickup in a slightly different visual and structural language. At first glance, the Transtar does not feel aggressive in the same way as its competitors. There is less visual weight in the front end, less exaggerated chrome emphasis, less of the industrial monument presence that defines many mid-1950s American pickups. Instead, the design feels smoother, more cohesive, and in some ways more restrained. The body panels appear more unified rather than segmented into heavily ornamented sections. The lines flow with less interruption, and the overall impression is closer to a functional machine that has been refined for visual simplicity rather than amplified for maximum presence. This alone makes it stand out in traffic during its era, because when parked next to a Ford F-Series or Chevrolet Task Force pickup of the same period, the differences in design philosophy become immediately visible. One looks bold and heavily emphasized, the other looks more streamlined and understated. But the Transtar is not a concept vehicle or a design exercise. It is still a fully functional production pickup intended for real-world use. That means underneath the visual differences, it still shares many of the core characteristics expected from trucks of its time. A rugged ladder frame chassis, rear-wheel drive layout, engine options focused on reliability, torque delivery, and long-term durability rather than performance experimentation. A cargo bed designed for hauling rather than styling statements. In other words, mechanically, it is still firmly rooted in traditional pickup engineering. The innovation is not in performance, it is in presentation. And that distinction is important, because in the 1950s, pickup trucks are not yet heavily influenced by lifestyle marketing or emotional branding in the way modern trucks eventually will be. They are still primarily utility objects. So any deviation in styling is interpreted through a practical lens. If a truck looks different, buyers often ask why it is different, not whether it looks better or more expressive. And that creates a challenge for Studebaker, because while the Transtar's design may appear more modern or refined to some eyes, it does not necessarily translate into increased market advantage in a segment that values familiarity and proven capability above all else. This is where Studebaker's broader business situation becomes critical. By the late 1950s, the company is already under significant financial pressure. Unlike Ford Motor Company and General Motors, which operate on enormous production scales and have deep dealership and service networks across North America, Studebaker is working with far more limited resources. That limitation affects everything: production volume, marketing reach, dealer availability, parts distribution, and long-term support confidence from buyers. Even if a vehicle is well designed, these external factors heavily influence its commercial success. Because a pickup truck is not just purchased, it is depended upon, and buyers in this segment tend to prioritize stability and long-term reliability of support systems as much as the vehicle itself. As a result, the Transtar exists in a difficult position. It is not radically flawed, it is not mechanically inferior in a dramatic sense, but it competes in a market where scale and trust often outweigh design uniqueness. And in that environment, smaller manufacturers face structural disadvantages that are difficult to overcome. Over time, this leads to relatively modest production numbers compared to the dominant truck lines of the era. And because these trucks were used in practical, everyday applications rather than preserved as collector items, many were eventually worn out, modified, or discarded as they reached the end of their working lives. Very few examples survive in original condition today, which is why the Transtar now appears more often in historical discussions than in real-world sightings. But its significance is not measured purely by survival rate or sales figures. Its importance lies in what it represents within the broader evolution of pickup design. Because it shows that even during a period of strong industry standardization, there were still manufacturers attempting to explore alternative design directions. Not by abandoning the concept of the pickup truck, but by subtly reinterpreting its visual identity, making it cleaner, more cohesive, less dependent on heavy ornamentation to communicate strength. And that makes the 1957 Transtar pickup an interesting counterpoint to its more famous competitors. Not a revolution that changed the industry overnight, not a failure defined by dramatic collapse, but a quiet example of design divergence in a market that was rapidly consolidating around a few dominant visual and engineering templates. In hindsight, it stands as a reminder that automotive history is not only shaped by the most successful vehicles, but also by the quieter alternatives that explored different ideas at the same time, even if those ideas did not ultimately become the dominant path forward.